Hi, in this video, I'm going to introduce ARP, Address Resolution Protocol. Now, before I get started, there's going to be a couple, 2 or 3 videos following this that show ARP in more detail. I think I have 3 more videos that talk about ARP. Okay, but I just want to introduce it in this video here. So what ARP is all about is we have this, let's take a look at this Ethernet frame with this IP packet right down here. Okay, so the device, which is actually A, has an Ethernet packet to send, and this is its source IP address, IPv4 address. And the destination IP address is 192.168.1.50. Okay, now we'll talk more about this in later videos and with IP, but A realizes that the destination is on the same link as itself. This device can be reached directly without going through the router. So in the Ethernet header, it puts its own MAC address, but it doesn't know the destination MAC address associated with this destination IP address. So what it does is it puts this packet on hold, okay? And it's going to send out what's called an ARP request, which is going to be talked about in more detail in the later videos. But before it sends out the ARP request, it actually checks its ARP cache. Do I have an IPv4 mapping to this MAC address? If I don't, I'll send out a broadcast, which is an ARP request, asking all devices on my network, who has this IPv4 address. That's the ARP request. And again, this ARP request will be talked about in more detail in following videos. Okay. These devices here, B will ignore it, the router will ignore it, but C will respond with its MAC address. So then A will then be able to send out this Ethernet frame with the proper destination MAC address. This will be discussed in more detail in the following videos, but it's all about what ARP is all about is when we know the IP, in this case, the local IPv4 address, but we don't know its MAC address. All right, continuing with this, let me clear that out, is what happens when the destination IP address is on a different network than the source address. Okay, so we have A here sending a packet to some device that is on another network. Okay, as you will see in the following videos, that the ARP request is not for the destination MAC address, but will be for the default gateway. So A will send an ARP request that will be received by everybody, but it's for the router's IP address, not the destination IP address. It'll be for the default gateway IP address. The router will return its MAC address, so that's what will be in the destination MAC address of the packet. Just to be clear here, just so you remember that what Ethernet is all about is NIC card to NIC card communications on the same network. Okay, that's what these MAC addresses, source and destination MAC addresses is about NIC card to NIC card communications on the same network. And layer 2, data link layer, that Ethernet header is only good for that communications. Okay, you'll see in later videos and in later chapters we'll be talking about this, but remember the router will remove this header if it has to forward it out on to another network and add a different data link header. Okay, so be sure to watch the other videos on ARP because it goes into it in much more detail. Okay. Hope this was a good introduction to ARP, Address Resolution Protocol, when a device knows the layer 3 IPv4 address, but does not know the layer 2 MAC address. want to add one more thing. We'll talk more about this later, but ARP is just IPv4. IPv6, when a device knows the IPv6 address but not its MAC address, uses a different but similar protocol called neighbor discovery. We'll get there later.